The Dollmaker's Secret Chapter 1. The shop on Hollow Street. Hollow Street was a place most people passed quickly. It was narrow, cobblestoned, and lined with crooked buildings that leaned a little too close to one another, as though whispering secrets. The street lamps there flickered more often than they worked, and on rainy evenings the fog seemed to cling stubbornly to the ground, making Hollow Street feel cut off from the rest of the town. At the far end stood a small shop with a faded wooden sign that read, Corbin S. Toys and Trinkets. But everyone in town knew it for what it truly was, the doll shop. The windows were always dimly lit, with lace curtains that concealed most of what lay inside. Children, if they were brave enough, would press their noses to the glass and catch glimpses of rows upon rows of dolls, porcelain faces staring blankly, painted smiles frozen in eternal delight, tiny hands resting delicately in their laps. Some dolls wore lace dresses, others sailor suits, and a few had tiny hats perched on their heads. But it wasn't their appearance that unsettled people. It was the eyes. Those dolls watch you, the townsfolk whispered. Turn your back, and they'll blink. Leave them alone too long, and they'll whisper in the dark. Few parents allowed their children inside, though every child secretly wanted to. Curiosity tugged at them stronger than fear. There were tales that the dolls could talk, that they could sing songs no one had taught them, or even grant a wish if you whispered into their glass ears. The man who owned the shop was Mr. Corbin. He was a tall, narrow fellow, always dressed in an old brown coat and scarf, no matter the season. His hair was white as snow, his beard trimmed but uneven, and his eyes sharp, bright, and tired all at once gave the impression of someone who had lived far longer than he should have. He spoke politely to customers, but never too warmly, and he was often seen late at night, long after shops should have been closed, still working in the glow of a single oil lamp. Some called him a genius craftsman, others called him strange. A few, especially children, whispered he was a magician. But Eliza knew none of this the first time she stepped onto Hollow Street. She was a quiet girl of 10, with dark hair usually tied in a ribbon and eyes that always seemed a little sad. Her parents worked long hours, her father at the factory and her mother at the sewing house, and though they loved her, they rarely noticed her. Birthdays passed with hurried kisses and a small cake from the bakery, but no time to sit and play. Eliza spent most of her afternoons wandering the town with her satchel slung over her shoulder, drawing things she found interesting, rooftops, stray cats, and sometimes even faces of people she wished she could speak to but never dared. That afternoon, clouds gathered thick and low, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Eliza pulled her shawl tighter and hurried along, but the storm came faster than she expected. Thunder cracked across the sky, and within minutes the cobblestone shone wet and slick. She ducked beneath a crooked awning, only then realizing where her feet had carried her, the far end of Hollow Street. And there it was, the doll shop. Its door stood just a few feet away, and through the misty glass of the window she saw them dozens of little faces staring out at her, pale and watchful. The storm roared overhead, and Eliza hesitated. Her heart thudded nervously. She'd heard the whispers at school, don't go in, don't look too long, or one of the dolls might follow you home. But a bolt of lightning split the sky, and the downpour grew heavier. She had no umbrella, no dry place to go, and the shop's warm golden light spilled onto the wet street like an invitation. Eliza swallowed hard, pushed the door, and stepped inside. A bell jingled faintly, its sound thin and almost apologetic, as though it too were nervous to disturb the silence. The air smelled of cedarwood and varnish. Shelves stretched high on every wall, stacked with dolls of every kind. Some sat neatly in rows, while others lounged in rocking chairs or leaned against miniature beds and prams. Their clothes were exquisite truffled silk dresses, tiny velvet coats, even boots with polished buttons smaller than her fingernails. And every doll's eyes were on her. Eliza's shoes squeaked softly on the wooden floor. She felt a chill crawl up her arms as she turned her head from one shelf to another. Though she told herself they were only toys, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped into a room of silent watchers, each one holding its breath. Behind the counter sat a man. "Ah," he said in a voice that was deep, gentle, and a little cracked, like an old violin string. "Caught in the rain, are you?" Eliza startled. She hadn't noticed him at first. Dotmer. Corbin sat hunched over a wooden figure, a carving knife in his hand. His white hair gleamed in the lamplight, and his thin fingers moved carefully as he whittled at the doll's face. "I am sorry," Eliza stammered, clutching her satchel. "I only came in because of the storm, mister." Corbin set down his knife and studied her. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. They seemed to see more than they should, as if, in a glance, he understood the kind of child she was, the weight she carried in her silence. "You're welcome here," he said simply. "Every child is. On a day like this," he gestured to the rows of dolls. "Do they frighten you?" Eliza hesitated. "A little." A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "That means you're sensible. Only fools think dolls are merely toys." The words sent a shiver through her. She glanced back at the shelves. One doll in particular, a porcelain girl with emerald green eyes, seemed to gleam brighter than the rest. Her gaze locked on it, and for a moment, Eliza swore she saw its head tilt, ever so slightly, as if it had noticed her too. Corbin followed her eyes. He murmured. "So she's chosen you." Eliza blinked. "Chosen me?" The dollmaker rose from his stool. His movements were slow, but deliberate, like someone carrying an invisible weight. He walked to the shelf and carefully lifted the doll from its place. The porcelain face was flawless, her hair dark and soft, her green eyes glittering like glass gems. Round her neck hung a tiny golden locket. "She's a special one, mister," Corbin said, cradling the doll as though it were alive. He brought it to Eliza and held it out. "Her name is Amara." Eliza felt her breath catch. She hadn't touched it yet, but already the doll seemed warm, like it had been waiting. Outside, the storm howled louder, rattling the windows. Inside, in the quiet of Corbin's shop, Eliza slowly reached out her hands. The moment her fingers brushed the doll, a whisper seemed to stir in the air, not a sound exactly, more like the faint memory of her voice. Eliza froze. Mr. Corbin's sharp eyes softened. "Yes," he said quietly, "she's yours now."